"What do you mean the fire extinguisher hasn't worked for 2 years?" Franklin more froze, hidden behind a stack of dented filing cabinets, his clipboard halfway to his chest. The voice belonged to a young guy, early 20s at best, just loud enough to cut through the whirring of fans inside the storage facility. Franklin had heard enough already. He scribbled something on the work order sheet clipped to his board and moved closer. This was the third location he'd visited in the last 4 weeks. When he bought the self-storage company 6 years ago, it had 10 facilities across the state. It was a solid business. Clean units, fair prices, and a decent reputation. But lately, more customer complaints were showing up in his inbox. Water damage, pest issues, staff being rude or unhelpful. Nothing huge on its own, but too many to ignore, and Franklin hated relying on sugar-coated reports from his district managers. They always sounded the same: "We're addressing it. Isolated incident, employee error." He didn't want reports. He wanted the truth. So Franklin shaved the beard he'd worn for 15 years, dyed his hair darker, and traded his usual suit for a faded hoodie and steel-toed boots. He created a fake resume and got hired through a temp agency as Frank Mitchell, a trainee technician. None of the location managers had ever seen him before. Most of the staff didn't even know what he looked like. It was perfect. Today was location number 6. A huge facility just outside the city, 3 stories tall with over 1,200 units. It was managed by a guy named Brent. Franklin had never met him, but the last 2 site reviews from Brent's place had been glowing. Still, something felt off. The turnover rate here was too high. The moment Franklin walked into the staff room that morning, he got the vibe: no greetings, no eye contact, half the lights were out. A stained couch sat in the corner and someone had duct-taped a "Do Not Sit" sign to it. "Frank, right?" a woman had asked. Late 30s, tired face, but kind. "I'm Kara, I'll show you the ropes." Kara had been working here for 4 years, she told him. Maintenance, front desk, whatever was needed. It was clear she cared about the place, even if no one else did. She showed him how to unlock stuck units where the breaker panel was, and how to log repair requests, though most of them, she admitted, were ignored. Now, Franklin stood behind the cabinets, listening as Kara was being scolded by a man with a voice like gravel. "I told you already," Brent snapped. "If the inspector shows up this week, you say everything's up to code, got it?" "But it's not," Kara said, voice low but steady. "Unit 318 has black mold, we've got exposed wires in the stairwell, and that fire extinguisher, I don't care," Brent cut in. "You want your hours cut again." "Because I'll do it. You say a word to the inspector and I'll make sure you're off the schedule next month." Franklin felt his stomach turn. He stepped out from behind the cabinets. "Hey, sorry," he said, playing dumb. "Didn't mean to eavesdrop. I was looking for the mop sink." Brent turned. "Who the hell are you?" "I'm Frank, the new tech. Started today." Brent sized him up. "Right, don't wander around where you're not needed. Go clean up the oil spill in 2B. Franklin nodded and walked away, but he didn't go to 2B. He found Kara near the rear exit 10 minutes later, sitting on an overturned bucket, staring at her phone. "You okay?" he asked. She looked up. "You weren't supposed to hear that." "I did," Franklin said. "And I think it's wrong." Kara gave a dry laugh. "You're new, you'll learn quick." Brent wants everything to look good on paper. Doesn't matter what's happening in real life. Has this happened before? Every time there's an inspection, he tells us to lie. Last guy who refused got transferred to the graveyard shift and quit a week later. Franklin was quiet for a second. Then he asked, "Why do you stay?" She looked at him. "Because I need this job, I've got a kid, rent's not cheap, and I keep hoping someone will notice." Franklin clenched his jaw. He didn't say what he was thinking that someone finally had. He just gave her a nod and said, "Well, I noticed." That afternoon, Franklin made a list. Every broken fixture, every safety hazard. He took photos. Not just of the mold and wires, but of the faded emergency exit signs, the rodent droppings in Unit 112, and the giant crack in the loading dock ramp that someone had tried to cover with plywood. And then, as he was locking up one of the upper floor units, he overheard something that made his blood run cold. "Remember," Brent said to another employee, "if the inspectors show up tomorrow, nobody mentions the leak in the ceiling or the rats. Say it's all taken care of. Got it? Or you can find another job." The other guy, mid-30s, nervous, just nodded. Franklin couldn't believe it. He walked back to the stairwell, heart pounding. He'd seen enough. Tomorrow, he wasn't showing up as Frank the tech. He was showing up as the man who owned the place. Franklin arrived early the next morning, parking his car a block away and walking in through the side gate. No hoodie, no clipboard, no fake name. This time he wore a gray button-down, pressed slacks, and the company lapel pin that hadn't left his desk drawer in nearly 2 years. His stride was quiet but deliberate. Inside, the front desk was empty. The lobby lights buzzed with a low flicker, and one of the ceiling tiles sagged, stained yellow from what was clearly an ongoing leak. A faint mildew smell hovered in the air. He made his way to the break room where Kara sat alone, sipping from a thermos and scrolling through her phone. She looked up, confused. You're not the new guy." "No," Franklin said simply. "I'm the owner." She blinked at him, stunned. "You." He nodded once. "I've been visiting locations undercover. I needed to see what was actually happening in my company, and now I have." Before she could respond, Brent barged in through the hallway door, phone in hand, barely glancing up. "There you are, Frank. I need you to mop out unit." His voice froze mid-sentence as his eyes landed on Franklin's clothes. His expression shifted fast, confusion giving way to a pale, uneasy recognition. "You're Franklin Moore," Brent said, almost under his breath. "I am," Franklin replied. "We need to talk." "Now?" Brent hesitated, then forced a chuckle like he was playing along with some elaborate joke. "Sure, yeah, of course, Mr. Moore. Didn't expect to see you here in person." "Let me, get the office ready. Break room's fine," Franklin said, stepping aside and gesturing to the table across from Kara. Brent sat stiffly. He glanced at her, then back at Franklin. "Is this about the inspection? We're ready for it. Everything's good to go." "No. This is about what I've witnessed over the last 2 days, and what I've heard from your team." Franklin placed a small stack of printed photos on the table. "That's mold in Unit 318, frayed wiring in the north stairwell, rat droppings in over a dozen units, and a fire extinguisher that hasn't worked in over 2 years." Brent didn't reach for the photos. His jaw shifted, locked tight. Franklin continued. "You've been instructing employees to lie during inspections. You've been intimidating them into keeping quiet. And you've been falsifying maintenance logs. That's criminal negligence." Brent leaned forward, voice low. "Look, I know how it sounds, but the budget's tight. We're doing the best we can with what we've got." "No," Franklin said evenly. "You're not. I've seen what doing the best you can looks like. Kara is doing the best she can. You're cutting corners and putting people in danger." Brent looked at Kara, then back at Franklin. "She's been feeding you this, hasn't she?" Franklin didn't even blink. "She's been telling the truth." "You've been lying." Brent stood abruptly. "You don't understand what it's like running this place day to day. You sit in an office miles away. You don't know the pressure I'm under." "I do now," Franklin said, voice sharp. "And I also know you've made it worse for everyone under you. I've seen your leadership. It ends today. You're done here." Brent opened his mouth, but Franklin cut him off. "This isn't negotiable." Brent's shoulders dropped slightly, but he didn't argue further. He turned and left the room without another word. Kara sat still, stunned. "Is he really gone?" "Yes," Franklin said. "Effective immediately." She blinked, processing. "I wasn't expecting that." "I didn't come here to watch people get threatened for doing the right thing," Franklin said. "I came here to fix what I let fall apart." She nodded slowly. "Thank you." Franklin stepped into the hallway and called the regional HR manager. He made it clear. Brent was to be formally terminated within the hour, escorted off premises, and barred from entering any company location again. There'd be no NDA, no quiet exit, just accountability. He returned to the lobby and found the assistant manager, a quiet guy named Leon who had barely spoken the day before. Franklin called him into the office and closed the door. I need someone to take over as acting manager for now, Franklin said. Temporary, you'll have support. But I need someone who knows the staff and understands the ground-level issues. Leon hesitated. I've only been here 6 months. You've seen how things work here, Leon nodded. Too well. Then I trust you, Franklin said. I'm not looking for someone who has all the answers. I'm looking for someone who asks the right questions. Leon finally met his eyes. All right, I'll do it. Franklin clasped his shoulder. Good, you'll get everything you need. Starting with more people. By noon, Franklin had 3 calls going, one with facilities to schedule urgent repairs, one with HR to reroute payroll access to Leon, and one with the legal team to begin reviewing compliance records from the last 12 months. He wasn't just patching holes, he was rebuilding the foundation. He walked the site with Kara and Leon, clipboard in hand, not as a prop this time, but to document. They found a rusted-out water heater in the lower storage wing, a jammed emergency exit on the east side, and a cracked security monitor that hadn't worked in weeks. This is what it should have been like all along, Kara said as they climbed the stairs to the 3rd floor. Franklin stopped at the top, looking down the corridor of units. It will be. That afternoon, he gathered the rest of the staff in the break room, 4 employees, all quiet at first, unsure of what to expect. I know this is sudden, Franklin said, standing in front of the vending machine. But I'm here to listen and to make things right. A young woman with a maintenance badge crossed her arms. We've heard that before. I believe you, Franklin said, which is why we're doing things differently. Your manager's gone. New leadership is in place. And the first thing we're doing is getting this facility safe for you and the customers. A tall man in the back raised a hand. What about the inspections? They're real this time, tomorrow morning. I know, Franklin said, and we're not hiding anything. We'll show them exactly what's broken and what's being fixed. If we get fined, we get fined, but we won't lie, not again. No one spoke, but the tension in the room shifted, slightly. After the meeting, Franklin stayed late. He helped Kara scrub mold from the inside of Unit 318, gloves on, sweat dripping from his collar. He joined Leon in the office to review overdue maintenance logs, and he personally called 3 customers who'd filed complaints in the past week, apologizing and offering free months. By the time the sun dipped behind the loading dock, the storage facility felt different, still broken in places but lighter. Honest, Kara passed him a bottle of water and leaned against the wall. You didn't have to do all this. Franklin took a sip. I did. I built something and handed it off without looking back. That's not leadership, that's negligence. She nodded slowly. Well, you're looking now. Franklin looked around at the chipped paint, the broken light above the exit, the patched concrete at his feet. But he also saw Leon organizing the tool cabinet, the assistant manager sweeping the hall without being told, and Kara finally standing upright instead of hunched under pressure. Tomorrow the inspectors would come. There'd be citations, maybe even penalties, but they would face it clean. And Franklin wouldn't be hiding behind a clipboard. By the time the inspectors arrived the next morning, the facility was awake in a new way. The staff had arrived early not because they were told to, but because they wanted to. Leon had split the team into pairs to walk the property one last time, flagging any hazards that might have gone unnoticed. Franklin stayed off to the side, watching, not overseeing, just observing. He noticed the quiet urgency in their movements, the way they spoke to one another with purpose instead of caution. The fear that had hung over the team like a fog had started to lift. The inspectors pulled up in 2 white sedans, clipboards already in hand. Franklin greeted them with a firm handshake. Morning, said the lead inspector, an older woman with sharp eyes and a neutral tone. We've got your facility flagged for a full review. Records, safety, compliance will be thorough. I expect nothing less, Franklin said. We're being transparent about every deficiency. My team will walk you through it. She raised a brow. That's so, he nodded. You'll see for yourself. They started with the stairwells, then moved through the storage wings. Franklin stayed close, letting Leon and Kara take the lead. They didn't hide a thing. Kara pointed out the damaged insulation above the third-floor units. Leon showed where the fire suppression panel had shorted out 2 weeks ago. The inspectors took notes without comment. Halfway through, the younger inspector, a wiry man who barely looked 30, paused near the north entrance. "You're aware this door doesn't latch securely?" Leon stepped forward. "Yes, we've logged it and parts are already ordered. Until it's fixed, we're manually securing it every night." The lead inspector glanced at Franklin. "And you're the facility manager?" "I own the company," Franklin said. "This team's running things while we rebuild from the inside out." She nodded slowly. "That's rare." They moved on. 2 hours later, the review wrapped up in the cramped office behind the front desk. The inspectors sat across from Franklin and Leon, pages stacked neatly between them. "This isn't going to be a clean report," the lead inspector said. "You've got expired safety certifications, non-functional equipment, and multiple OSHA violations. There will be penalties." "I understand," Franklin said. "We're not disputing anything. But," she continued, "given what we saw today, the honesty, the documentation, the fact that you're already addressing the issues, we're recommending a compliance-based grace period. You'll still be fined, but you'll have 30 days to fix the violations before we escalate further." Leon exhaled quietly. Franklin offered his hand again. "Thank you for being fair." The inspector stood. "Don't mistake it for leniency." "We'll be back. I'm counting on it." Once they left, Leon leaned against the door, rubbing the back of his neck. "You all right?" Franklin asked. "Yeah," Leon said. "Just didn't think they'd actually give us a chance." "They didn't," Franklin said. "You earned it." As word spread through the facility, the tension didn't vanish, but something steadier took its place. A sense of control. For once, the team wasn't bracing for fallout. They were building something. That afternoon, Franklin called a regional meeting over video with all location managers. No agenda, just a warning. "I'm not interested in excuses," he said. "If you've been hiding safety issues, mistreating staff, or lying on reports, I'll find out. And I won't be subtle about how I deal with it." Some nodded. Others looked down. One manager in particular, a man named Ellis from the North Campus, narrowed his eyes slightly. After the call ended, Franklin walked back to the break room. Kara was packing up a stack of invoices, her sleeves rolled to the elbow. "Leon said you've been handling billing since the last admin quit," Franklin said. She looked up. "Yeah. We couldn't afford to leave it hanging." "You're doing the work of 3 people. Not the first time." Franklin set down a folder. "That ends today. I've approved a new hire for front desk support. You'll shift back to maintenance and facilities where you're most needed." "And I'm increasing your pay," Kara blinked. "Wait, seriously, you've been holding this place together. I should have seen that sooner." She nodded slowly, then looked down. "I don't know what to say." "Don't say anything," Franklin said. "Just stay." She gave a small laugh, not bitter, not tired. "Just real." Later that week, the new hire arrived. Her name was Michelle, early 40s, sharp mind, detail-oriented. She had experience in facilities management and had worked at another storage chain for over a decade. Franklin personally onboarded her, walking her through the systems and making sure she understood the team dynamic. She took to Kara immediately. "These logs are actually organized," Michelle said, flipping through the maintenance binder. "You don't see that often." Kara shrugged. "I was tired of guessing." Michelle smiled. "Well, that makes 2 of us." Meanwhile, Franklin had HR run a full audit on all location leads, not just compliance, employee exit surveys, payroll anomalies, scheduling patterns. What came back wasn't what he wanted to see. Ellis, the manager who'd stared him down during the video call, had the highest turnover rate in the company. 10 departures in 8 months, most cited hostile environment or inconsistent hours. One former employee had noted, in exact words, "Ellis only gives full hours to guys he likes." "If you're older, female, or speak up, you're out." Franklin didn't wait for clarification. He drove to the North Campus himself. When he arrived unannounced, Ellis was in the office. He barely stood up. "Didn't expect a visit," Ellis said. "You're not getting one," Franklin replied. "You're getting a termination," Ellis scoffed. "You serious?" Franklin placed a printed file on the desk. Exit interviews, flagged payroll changes, and security footage timestamps showing Ellis clocking out early while others stayed behind. "I don't do warnings for discrimination," Franklin said. "You're done, effective now." Ellis stood, jaw tight. "You'll regret cutting someone who actually runs their site tight." "I don't regret cutting people who use fear to do it," Franklin said. Ellis left without another word. Franklin stayed behind and met with the remaining staff. 5 employees, all sitting around the breakroom table, unsure of what came next. "You're not losing your jobs," Franklin said. "You're gaining the leadership you should have had." One of them, an older woman with a faded name tag, cleared her throat. "We used to like working here." Before he took over. "You'll like it again," Franklin said, "but I'll need your help." Back at the city location, the repairs were starting to show. New fire extinguishers had been mounted. The emergency exit was reinforced. The mold remediation team had cleared the affected units. Franklin walked the halls with Leon and Michelle, clipboard in hand, but this time the notes were shorter. "Feels like we're finally turning a corner," Leon said. "We are," Franklin replied. "But we're not done." He turned to Michelle. "What's the biggest gap you see?" She didn't hesitate. "Training. Most of the staff are figuring things out as they go. That's fine for a week, not for long term." Franklin nodded. "You'll write the plan." "I already started." Franklin smiled. "Good. Send it to me when you're ready." As they reached the loading dock, Kara emerged from the back hallway, wiping her hands on a rag. "Got the new breaker wired in," she said. "No more flickering lights on the second floor." Leon gave a low whistle. "That was fast." Kara shrugged. "Had help from Marcus. He's learning quick." Franklin looked toward the hallway. Marcus, the youngest on staff, barely out of high school, gave a small wave before disappearing into the utility room. Franklin turned back to the group. "He's next. I want him in the training program." Michelle folded her arms. "You really think he's ready?" "I think he wants to be," Franklin said. "And that's where we start." The facility wasn't fixed, not yet, but it was running again, not just operationally, but ethically, fairly. People were speaking up. Systems were being rebuilt, not patched over. And the staff, once buried under pressure, was starting to rise. Franklin walked the perimeter one last time that evening, the hum of the streetlights above him. The building still bore its scars, cracks sealed, corners repainted, but it stood solid. He paused at the back exit where the latch had been replaced 2 days earlier. He tested it. It clicked shut with a clean snap. This time, nothing was being left open. 3 weeks had passed since Franklin had walked back into his own company as a stranger. Now he walked the same corridors as himself, recognizable, respected, and above all, accountable. The city location still echoed with the hum of air vents and the occasional clatter of rolling doors, but something fundamental had shifted. The silence no longer carried unease. It carried focus. The staff moved with purpose, not fear. The faces were different not just in expression, but in posture. Shoulders weren't hunched. Eyes didn't dart for approval. They met each other steady. Franklin stood at the edge of the front office, watching Michelle walk a new hire through the inventory system. The new girl, Sarah, had come from a competing company's logistics team. She asked questions quickly and listened faster. Franklin didn't interrupt. He had no reason to. Michelle had it handled. Leon came around the corner carrying 2 sealed boxes. "Just got the new camera units. Security teams coming to mount them tomorrow." Franklin nodded. "You've got your install plan already mapped out." "We're covering every blind spot Brent ignored." Franklin's hands rested in his pockets. "You thinking of staying in the role beyond interim?" Leon didn't answer right away. "I wasn't at first. Thought I was just filling a hole, but it doesn't feel temporary anymore." "Then let's make it official." Leon blinked. "You serious?" "You've earned it, and you've rebuilt trust here. That's not something I can promote into existence." Leon's voice was quieter now. I never thought someone like me would be offered a management title. Franklin tilted his head. Because of your age, Leon shook his head, because I keep to myself. Don't play politics. Just try to do the job right. That's exactly why I want you in charge. Leon nodded once and walked back toward the equipment room. His steps were quieter but more grounded. Franklin turned and made his way down the central corridor. He passed Kara in the stairwell, holding the handrail as she guided Marcus through a wiring diagram. You're letting him try the fuse panel? Franklin asked. Kara didn't look up. He's ready. Walked him through the steps twice already. Marcus kept his eyes on the panel. I've got the breaker off. I'm just tracing the ground. Franklin crossed his arms. When you're done, show me how you mapped it. I want to see your method. Marcus looked up with a quick nod. Yes, sir. Franklin continued toward the rear loading dock. Outside, a delivery truck had just backed in. The driver handed a clipboard to Sarah, who checked off each item methodically. She didn't need supervision. She needed room. Inside the office, Kara joined him 5 minutes later. She had grease on her sleeve and a pencil behind her ear. You always this involved now? She asked. I'm not stepping back again, not like before. She grabbed a bottle of water from the fridge. You still planning to visit the other locations? Franklin leaned on the counter. Already scheduled, but I'm not going in blind anymore. HR's auditing every site. Anonymous staff check-ins every quarter. And I'm setting up a direct reporting system bypasses middle management. If someone's being mistreated, I hear about it fast. Kara took a long drink. It's strange. I keep waiting for the other shoe to drop. It won't. I used to think the rot was just at this place. Now I know it's the way some people lead and the way others look away. Franklin's voice was steady. I looked away and you still showed up every day. She put the bottle down. I couldn't afford not to, I know, which is why I've also started a hardship fund, company-backed, for employees who hit hard times, housing, health, whatever. No paperwork labyrinths, just direct help. Kara raised an eyebrow. That's going to cost you. Franklin shrugged. Not as much as losing people like you. Later that afternoon, Franklin gathered the full team in the main hallway. No chairs, no podium, just a circle. He waited until everyone had arrived: Leon, Michelle, Kara, Marcus, Sarah, even the part-timers from the evening shift. I wanted to say something before I start traveling again, he began. Not a speech, just something I owe you. The hallway was quiet. Everyone waited. I built this company because I believed storage could be done better. Cleaner, safer, more human. But over time, I got further from the floor. I let others paint the picture. I stopped looking for myself. He paused. What I found when I did look wasn't what I built, and that's not on Brent, that's on me. Nobody interrupted. I watched people get told to lie. I watched safety get ignored. I watched Kara get threatened for doing the right thing, and I stayed quiet for a bit to understand it, but I won't ever be quiet again. He scanned the faces. A few met his directly. Others looked at the floor, not from shame, but from something else, maybe relief. You're not invisible anymore. Your work, your voices, your limits, they matter, and if any leader in this company ever forgets that, they won't be a leader for long. Michelle spoke up. What about the locations still running the old way? I'll be at each of them, in person, and the standard is clear. We lead with integrity or we don't lead at all. Marcus straightened. You think they'll listen? Franklin looked at him. They won't have a choice. The circle broke apart slowly. People returned to their stations. Leon reviewed the install map with Sarah. Kara pulled out a new fuse board schematic. Marcus helped unload the last of the shipments. Franklin lingered in the doorway of the office. There were still things to fix, there always would be. But the difference now was who was fixing them. Before he left for the day, Franklin stopped by the bulletin board near the break room. A new section had been added, Staff Voice. A few suggestions were already pinned. One proposed a rotating weekend shift schedule. Another asked for better lighting in the south corridor. A third simply said, "Thanks for noticing us." He added one more in his own handwriting, "Leadership listens. Keep speaking." He stepped outside into the dusk air. The lot was quiet. The building behind him wasn't perfect, but it was honest, and for the first time in years it was his again.